I want to tell you about a conversation I almost had. My son Dante was maybe 12. He'd been sitting more than playing for 3 straight games, and I had built up a whole speech in my head on the drive over. I knew exactly what I was going to say to that coach. I had rehearsed it, I had receipts. And then I watched another parent walk up to that coach right before I did. I don't know exactly what was said, but I watched that parent's kid, who had been playing decent minutes, sit the entire second half of the next game. I put my speech back in my pocket. Here's what I want you to hear before we get into anything else. One bad conversation with a coach can cost your child playing time for the entire season. Not because coaches are vindictive, but because youth soccer is a relationship sport, and you just made the relationship complicated.
So today, I'm going to walk you through how to actually have this conversation, when to have it, how to frame it, what to say, and what to keep your mouth shut about. Because this is one of those situations where how you show up matters as much as what you say. Let's go. Most parents don't avoid this conversation because they don't care. They avoid it because they're terrified of making things worse. And that fear is legitimate. I'm not going to tell you it isn't. You've seen it happen to other kids. You've heard the stories. Parent says something, coach gets defensive, kid ends up on the bench with a fake hamstring issue that miraculously disappears 3 weeks later. But here's what I want to challenge you on. The fear of that conversation is causing you to have a different, worse conversation, the one you're having at home. You're coming home frustrated. Your kid is picking up on it. You're planting doubt in their head about the coach. You're creating a triangle, you, your child, and the coach, where everyone's interpreting everyone else's behavior through a funhouse mirror. The unspoken conversation is always louder than the one you're avoiding. So we're not doing this to be brave. We're doing this because the alternative, staying silent and stewing, has its own cost.
Before we talk about what to say, let's talk about when not to say anything. Do not talk to a coach before a game. They are mentally preparing. You are background noise at best, a disruption at worst. Do not talk to a coach after a loss. Emotions are high on both sides. Nothing productive has ever come from a post-loss playing time conversation. Nothing. I'll wait. Do not talk to a coach on the sideline during a game. I don't care if the moment feels perfect. It's not. You're asking them to split their attention while they're doing their job. That conversation will not go the way you want it to. Here's when you do reach out. 24 to 48 hours after the game, through the right channel. Most coaches prefer email or a text to schedule a time. What you do not want to do is ambush them. Give them the ability to prepare. Give yourself the ability to prepare. Schedule a 5 to 10 minute phone call or an in-person conversation at a neutral time.
That one small thing, scheduling it instead of cornering them, changes the entire energy of the conversation before it starts. Okay, you've waited 24 hours, you've reached out, the call is scheduled. Now what? The single biggest mistake parents make in these conversations is leading with conclusions instead of questions. My son isn't getting enough playing time is a conclusion. My daughter works harder than anyone at practice and she's sitting is a conclusion dressed up as an observation. Both of those put the coach on the defensive immediately. And a defensive coach is not going to give you useful information. They're going to give you a polite, closed answer and then get off the phone as fast as possible. Here's a different way to open. Coach, I want to understand what my child needs to work on to earn more playing time. Read that again. That question does 4 things at once. It acknowledges that playing time is earned, not owed. It positions you as someone who wants to help your kid improve. It invites the coach into a development conversation instead of a conflict conversation. And it gives you actual, actionable information. You are not agreeing that your kid doesn't deserve to play more. You are getting the roadmap. Follow-up questions that work. Is there something specific you're seeing in practice or games that I should be aware of? What does a player at this position need to demonstrate to get more minutes? Is there anything we can be doing at home to support what you're working on in practice?
Notice the pattern. Every single one of those is future-facing. Every one of them is collaborative. None of them put the coach in a position where they have to defend a decision they've already made. You're not asking them to justify the past. You're asking them to help shape the future. I have to give you the list, because I know some of you are writing down those questions and also already planning to sneak one of these in. Don't do it. My kid works harder than anyone on this team. Maybe true. Doesn't matter. The coach has a different view of the field than you do, and this statement signals that you've already decided the coach is wrong. Other parents feel the same way. You just turned a conversation about your child into a coalition. You have now become a problem that requires a political response, not a parent who deserves a real one. I've been watching this team for months and I know what I'm seeing. You're a parent in the stands.
The coach knows this. Invoking your sideline credentials will not land the way you think it will. At his last club, he was a starter. Different coach, different team, different standard. This is not relevant information, and bringing it up signals that you haven't accepted where you are now. And the big one, my child is losing motivation because of this. I know this feels like a trump card. It is not. What a coach hears when you say this is, my child needs external validation to stay motivated, and I need you to provide it. That is not a conversation that ends with more playing time. That is a conversation that ends with a gentle suggestion that maybe this level of soccer isn't the right fit. If your child is actually struggling emotionally, and many of them are, I lived this, that's a real conversation worth having. But have it separately, and have it as a welfare concern, not a leverage point.
Here's the reframe I want you to take away from this video. When you walk into that conversation asking, how do I get my child more playing time? You're asking the coach to give you something. You're a petitioner. And coaches, like most humans, are not at their best when they feel petitioned. When you walk in asking, what does my child need to develop to earn more playing time? You're asking the coach to partner with you. Now you're on the same side. That shift is not a trick. It's not a manipulation technique. It's actually the correct framing because playing time in youth soccer, at the competitive level, should be about development. If it's not, that's a different problem. But assuming the coach is operating in good faith, this framing invites them to give you real, useful, honest feedback. And here's what I've seen happen when parents have this version of the conversation. Coaches open up.
They share things they wouldn't say in a group setting. They give you a glimpse into how they actually evaluate players. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the parent walks away realizing the situation isn't what they thought it was. Not always in the way they wanted. Sometimes the feedback is hard. Sometimes the coach tells you something about your child's attitude in practice, or their positioning, or their decision-making that you weren't aware of. And that's uncomfortable. But that's information. Information you can actually use.
2 things to do when the conversation is over. First, thank the coach and let it breathe. Do not send a follow-up email the next day. Do not bring it up at the next practice. Give the conversation room to work. If the coach said they'd think about something, or that they pay closer attention to a specific area, give them a few weeks before you assess whether anything changed. Second, have an honest conversation with your child, not a debrief of the coach conversation. You don't tell your kid everything the coach said. What you do is ask them how they feel about where they're at. You ask them what they want to work on. You reconnect with their experience of this, not yours. Because here's the thing I had to learn the hard way. Sometimes what I thought was my kid's problem was actually my problem. Dante was okay.
I was the one carrying the weight of what I thought his playing time meant about his potential, his future, his whole trajectory. He just wanted to play soccer with his friends and get better. Don't let your anxiety become their burden. So let's bring this back to the beginning. One bad conversation with a coach can cost your kid playing time, that's real. But no conversation costs them something too. It costs you information. It costs the relationship. And it costs your kid a parent who's stuck in frustration instead of being present. The conversation is worth having. Just have the right one. If you found this helpful, I want to point you to something that might help you go deeper. I put together a quiz that helps you figure out what kind of soccer parent you actually are right now and what to do with that. A lot of parents have taken it and told me it helped them see their own situation differently. Link is in the description. And if you've got a story about a coach conversation that went well or one that absolutely didn't, drop it in the comments. I read them all. I'll see you in the next one.